Today we're going to add color and value or shading to help finish off our hearts. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you have used your permanent markers, whether they're regular size or extra fine, to do any of the textures. That way this part won't blend when we use the water. We're going to use markers to add this color, and then after the marker's on there, we'll use water and a paintbrush to help those colors blend together and to fade that shading into the heart so it feels three-dimensional, kind of like the hearts of Jim Dine. So first thing I would do is when you're using color today, think about colors that sit close to each other on the color wheel to create new colors that you don't have. So my first area here, I want it to look like grass. So I want it to have kind of some darker areas and some lighter areas. So I'm going to be using green and yellow. You don't need to use very much marker because as you add the water, it's going to blend a lot. So I'm really just adding strokes of this green color in here. I'm not going to color the entire project. I'm going to let the water kind of blend that, and I might put some extra lines in here where it's kind of whitish, but it's really just get some color onto the project. Now on this section over here, I'm probably going to go ahead and put my darker values on the left, so I'm not going to focus quite as much on that left side, but on the right side I'm going to add quite a bit of yellow to put some lighter values of green into my grasses. So I'm kind of using a similar textural stroke with my colorful watercolor markers as I did when I was creating those textures to begin with. I will put some yellow over here, but I don't need to put much because I'm going to have some darker values over there. If I wanted it to go even darker but not be black, you'll notice that blue sits next to green too, so I could put some darkness with blue, or grass grows in the dirt, so I could add some brown or add some gray, and that's going to add a little bit of darkness. So maybe down here I'll add some gray, and we'll just see what happens as I put the water on here. Okay, so you're going to add colors in every section that match. We'll come back and talk about the value part and the watercolor in just a minute. Notice how when I put the color on with the watercolor marker, I mimicked what was going on in the texture before. So these curving lines, I traced with curving watercolor lines. There were some dots in the background, so I put that color on in a dotted fashion, so that if some of it still shows up, it will still have that same texture. Notice that this one that had all of the overlapping, crazy, jumbled lines, that's the way that the watercolor marker is put on also. And down here, I had some texture that had kind of hatching, and so the color is put on with hatching lines. Now we need to put some value in to create that illusion of a three-dimensional form of that heart, kind of like we saw in the Jim Dine pictures. So we watched the video and practiced making a cone using some hatching marks and a sphere. And if we put a cone and a sphere together, two spheres and one cone, we can create that same look. So we'll put this cone upside down. Notice that near the tip it gets smaller, and near the wide part it gets a little wider. And it's only along one edge of the sphere. So I'm going to start with the sphere, and I'm just going to add some lines like this, and like I said earlier, as it goes down that cone, it gets narrower and narrower. So here's another sphere coming over, and so we're just going to see that side of the heart using some of those kinds of lines. So now we're going to put that on here. I recommend that you do not use very much, go very lightly. So I'm just putting a few little lines along the edge of my heart and a few little lines on the second half of the sphere at the top. And I'm going to do that in each section, and then we'll be ready for the watercolor. Now we're ready to blend our colors together using water and a paintbrush. The thing I would make sure to do is do the sides where you have added some shading or value to make it darker last. So also, if you have areas like this one is supposed to look like bricks, and I want to leave this area pretty white, so I'm going to go very slow through there and not rush as I'm painting that. So let's just start there. You're going to just take your water and blend it across your shape, and magically that watercolor marker is going to blend those together, and it should fade into a watery overall color in that shape. So once I get that done, I'll move on to the side, but I'm going to go over to this one that is looking like grass texture, and I'm going to zoom in as I do this. So first, I'm going to do the areas that don't really have the value, and notice that I'm using the strokes in the same direction as the texture, and I'm not going to get extra water until I really feel like I need it. And I'm just really wanting to put enough water on that the colors can kind of blend together. Finally, I'll go over these edges that have that shading for that darker value, and that way it doesn't overwhelm my entire picture. All right, so have fun with this and create those colors and values to finish up your artwork.